That is, as Gnome says, that's the final whistle. 95 minutes and 3 seconds played at the London Olympic Stadium tonight. The game has finished West Ham United 1, Manchester United 3. The Hammers could have been 4 or 5 goals up at half-time. Such was our dominance in the opening 45 minutes. But a change at half-time, a double switch by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, introducing Rashford and Fernandes for Cavani and Van der Beek, and later introducing Mata for Martial, made all the difference in the second half. Bruno Fernandes controlling the game, really, for Manchester United, at the heart of everything good they did in the second half. And unfortunately, West Ham simply couldn't cope with the opposition. And our unbeaten run of, well, our 3 successive wins, which could have been 4 at one point, comes to a disappointing end. I'll turn first to Pinky for your initial post-match assessment. West Ham United 1, Manchester United 3.
Not an altogether bad performance by us tonight. The score of 3-1, I think, flatters Manchester United, but it also reflects, the capability of their squad relative to ours. For a manager to be able to bring on players of the class of Marcus Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, and Juan Mata, that gives a manager, a big lift up. And no wonder the likes of Klopp and Solskjaer are all calling for 5 subs, because then who knows, they could bring on another 2 world-class superstars to batter other Premier League sides. So for me tonight, the difference was the bench. Solskjaer had more and better options than Moyes had. But having said that, in the first half, if we'd done what we should have done, which is take our chances, would have been home, hosed and out of sight, because no one's going to tell me that David Moyes, if we're 3-0 up, can't organise a team to keep a clean sheet. And it doesn't matter if you've got Maradona, Pele and Johan Cruyff in the opposition. Moyes understands how to defend. Let's be clear on that. So for me, it's not taking our chances tonight. That's cost us. It's cost us big time. But equally and more disturbingly is when the chairman has already essentially said there's no money to spend in January, you only have to look at the paucity of options for the manager off the bench tonight. And that's why I'm saying 8th is where we'll finish. And I see no reason to change my mind.
West Ham, thank you, Pinky. West Ham down to 7th as a result of defeat tonight. At one stage during the live league table, we were, of course, in 3rd when we led 1-0. But Manchester United rise to 4th as a result of their win. And the Hammers have to pick up and go again next week. Rio, great start from West Ham. Looked brilliant in the first half, suffered in the second.
Yeah, Pinky's just summed it up marvellously well. Wasteful in front of goal was cost us. I mean, the ironic thing is, compared to Monday night's game, that performance was a million times better. We played, particularly in the first half, with a real intensity, a real purpose. We did everything right, apart from convert our chances. And as he's rightly pointed out, Man United have got the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Marcus Rashford on the bench. Who have we got to change games, really? We're not in the same league in that respect. And again, as he's rightly pointed out, in the January window, we're not going to walk that, are we? We're going to be shopping at Lidl's. Well, Man United could pop down to Waitrose and pick up a much needed defender, because believe me, their defence needs a lot of work. It's only their attacking flair and the calibre of Bruno Fernandes, Marcus Rashford that has won them this game. That and our wastefulness in front of goal. But yeah, compared to particularly Monday night and possibly the Fulham game as well, we performed a million times better and come away with nothing. And that's West Ham for you.
Thank you, Rio. West Ham United 1, Manchester United 3. Rio feels that we played better tonight than we did against Villa, Gnome, but come away with a defeat instead of a victory. As we, said, that's the way it goes sometimes. But what are your feelings looking back on what you've just seen?
Yeah, disappointment. really, because of we as Rio said, we played better and come away with nothing. I think we deserved a point out of that. But you don't take your chances, you don't score the goals. I did notice as the players were coming off, Moyes was in deep discussion with Mariner, and Mariner just said, Mariner was giving that sort of, I don't know, sort of look about him. So I suspect we're going to be getting some comments about that very shortly. Be interesting to see what Charlie's got to say if he's hanging around to speak to us.
Well, how about that for timing? Look at that. There he is. He was ecstatic. Well, when we last saw Charlie at halftime, he had a huge smile on his face. He's actually smiling a bit now, but
I'm still smiling.
I suspect he's not quite as happy as he was about 45 minutes ago. Charlie, West Ham United 1, Manchester United 3. We were cruising at halftime. We could have been 3 or 4 or even 5 up.
Yeah.
What went wrong in the second half?
Well, you could tell that our lot, I think, were knackered. Even 5 minutes into the second half, they looked a bit leggy, especially down the middle. And obviously the changes were just sensational. I think there was a lot of strength. We suddenly didn't have the strength down the middle, especially. No one was playing badly. I couldn't see any sort of terrible mistakes, but you could just see we weren't closing them down so quickly. And they got lucky, didn't they? Fucking hell, Jesus. It's kind of, it feels familiar in a way, doesn't it? It feels familiar. It was very nice at the end. The players came over. Declan, looked so gutted, and they came over to the crowd. You sort of wonder, what would happen if it had been full when that Pogba goal had gone in. There would have been a kind of rally from the crowd. I don't know if it had made any difference, if that would pick players up a bit. So it was a horrible, it was a bit like a graveyard, that second half.
Well, we did ask actually, Charlie.
Sorry,
no, go on.
Were you aware, Charlie, of that goal that it appeared to have gone out of play?
Yeah, we got the VAR thing, didn't we? I couldn't see, to be honest. We thought it was offside, but that wasn't the truth. But you could tell that they just had that presence in front of goal, and Rashford, especially when he came on, was just, he just had the legs on us. I was saying to my son earlier that our defence was superb first half, but they hadn't been turned once. They hadn't had to chase the ball at all. And as soon as Rashford came on, you could see they were suddenly getting stretched. Suddenly space really opened up. So there you go. Still a great day. Still a great day.
Well, yeah, of course. For those who have only just
joined us on the stream
after the final whistle, Charlie is one of the lucky 2,000 who was fortunate enough to be. It's a bit like Willy Wonka in a way, being granted a golden ticket to get into the ground this evening. Charlie has been keeping an eye on proceedings and showing us around the ground since before the final whistle. Whereabouts are you now, Charlie? You look to be just outside the ground on the concourse or outside.
I mean, look at that. That's what it looks like. It looks like the game finished about 2 hours ago. It's a very strange feeling, And
is there anybody? I mean, you're riding home, but I presume there's quite a few fans making their way back to the station.
Yeah, again, it's there's none of that sense of the mass of people. I think there's things like the sort of play acting from when what's his name when Rashford went down and then Maguire went down as if somebody had broken his leg. And of course, there's a bit of shouting at that, but you can imagine the abuse he would have got if there had been 50,000 people in there, So I miss that. In defeat, we enjoy that kind of thing.
We were doing it for you, Charlie.
Thank you. Yeah.
How would you, overall, Charlie? How would you sum up the experience of being in a mostly empty stadium?
Not good, but it does show you that we complain about the atmosphere at this place. But it's a hell of a lot better when you've got 50,000 people in there. I think today would have been an absolutely amazing first hour anyway for people, So we knock the Olympic Stadium, the London Stadium, but I can tell you it's very pretty, you know. And the toilets have never been cleaner. I've never seen. You could eat your dinner off the toilets there tonight, but it'd be a lot better with 50,000 in there. You know, you know, you just get it all that vibe back. It's just incredible. You know, you perhaps you appreciate it a bit more. Well, a lot more, like so many things in life, don't we? Just appreciating the idea of being able to do that.
Well, we thoroughly appreciate you taking the time out.
So I've lost you guys. My link's gone. I'll have to.
We can hear you.
Out.
We can hear you, Charlie.
We can hear you, Charlie. So don't start scratching your whatsits or anything. Or he's gone. Charlie's gone. Charlie, live from the London Olympic Stadium for us. There, you can catch up with Charlie on the KUMB Forum, where he posts. Our thanks to Charlie. We might even get him back in a little while. We shall see. But great to have someone actually at the ground there. Pinky, what did you make of it? It looked like a very surreal experience being at the ground tonight, from what Charlie was telling us. Yeah,
and as much as I would like to have been there, I'm not sure it's an atmosphere that you'd want to endure for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
The fact that kind of like sit down, shut up, and stay in your seat, and you're in trouble if you move so much as an inch. You know, having caned the club a bit earlier about the way they've processed the ballot, what else can they really do? They're in a very difficult situation. All football clubs are, and you know what I'd say is, if we're in a difficult situation, spare a thought for the lower leagues, for grassroots football, for those further down the food chain in terms of access to funds. Let's never forget that Premier League clubs choose how they spend their income, and the fact they choose to spend so much of it on players' wages and agents, that's why they're skint. I think once you get down to the fourth division or the conference level, there isn't all that much money to start with, and it's those clubs I feel desperately sorry for at this point in time. But for us tonight, for 2,000 lucky fans being able to go to a game tonight, I'm not sure how many of them would be queuing up to do it week after week in a stadium with 2,000 people in it, particularly that stadium. But good luck to them. But I think football will now be pressurising the government very, very heavily to say, well, you've allowed 2,000 in. What's wrong with 5,000 or 10,000? Because you know, this is something that is now going to turn into a political hot potato. There's no doubt about it. And there's all sorts of activities that I think people would rather be doing. And one of them certainly is going to games of football. I don't have the answers, but it seems to me, you know, football is a sport that needs live supporters there. It's that simple. It really does. Because how many times were the trainers on the pitch tonight? And I've just got this little thing that maybe the games aren't being played at quite the intensity there would be if there were 60,000 there. There isn't quite as much physicality. And I think that's one of the reasons we're seeing more goals this season, is there's a bit more space because players aren't quite giving it the 100%. They're 97, 98%. And at this level, that leaves a lot of space. So for me, I want to see the fans back in, and sooner rather than later.
Great stuff. Thank you, Pinky. Gnome, as always, is keeping an eye on the post-match interviews for us. We've seen Rashford, I think, go through. Nothing for the managers yet. I just wanted to ask you quickly, Gnome. I've just seen a replay on the TV of the incident where we feel that the ball was out of play from Henderson's long goal kick. Now, just watching the reaction of David Moyes there, he puts his hand up as soon as the ball's kicked, and then, as if he's expectant of being given the throw in, and then turns around.
But if you look, the linesman's got his back to it. He's not doing his job, you know, our officials are the greatest in the world. Apparently, no, they're not. And
but isn't it?
It's the laughing stock of the world. Our officials, and it's it's lapses like that really sort of annoy, because that's something simple. That's something clear and obvious. It's something simple that you should should be able to deal with. VAR was about as much use as a chocolate teapot in that case. It looked at one angle, decided it couldn't decide one way or another.
Yeah.
But you know, you've got a linesman whose job it is to stick his flag up when the ball goes out of play, looking in completely opposite direction. Do you want to come back to me? Solskjaer's on at the moment.
We'll do that. We will do that. Rio, let me take you back to, as I said, Charlie was at the ground tonight, giving us a first-hand experience of what it was like to be in that vast stadium with only 2,000 fans present. I guess in a way that's what it would have been like if we'd have perhaps ground shared with Orient, wouldn't it, for the O's fans, if they'd been playing home games there. But do you know, would you have liked to have been there tonight?
I would have liked to have been there just simply because I love the club and I want to see them play in the flesh as much as possible.
Yeah.
What I wouldn't have enjoyed is not being able to, as I mentioned earlier, do the usual match day routines, meet up with friends beforehand, meet up with friends afterwards, and break down the game as we pretty much as we do today.
Yeah,
it just would have been a really weird atmosphere. I've been in that stadium when it's had that many people in, probably a few less, and even then, and that was for a completely different event, and it was cavernous, weird, and I just sat in the seats on that particular day, looked around, and I thought, this is not a football stadium. But if I'd have been there tonight, I probably would have looked around, and thought, you know what? I'm not glad I'm here. I'm really glad I've actually got to see a game of football in the flesh, got to see my team in the flesh.
Yeah.
And albeit with so few people around me,
yeah,
I think I would have enjoyed it and made the most of it, you know? I'm just desperate to see West Ham play in the flesh again.
Yeah.
It's not ideal. We're taking tiny steps towards some sort of normality. Yeah, I just think it's the before and after for me, which would have really made the difference, you know? Seeing what Charlie was doing there, walking through an empty concourse, an empty route back towards the station or where his bike was parked, that would have probably made the biggest impact on me than anything else, I think. Because you're so used to being stuck amongst 50, 60,000 people trying to get somewhere, and you don't have that buzz and that chatter and sharing comments with people, just walking back to places, you know. I'd miss that more than I would anything else, I think.
Yeah. Yes, unfortunately, most people did miss out, but I guess, of course, there's going to be future ballots going forward. So who knows? It might be one of our guys in there very soon. Maybe Rio or Pinky or even Gnome can get in there soon and win the ballot. That's, of course, if we've not been blacklisted by the club for some of the comments we've made on some of these programmes and elsewhere in recent weeks and months. But anyway, we shall continue to hope. West Ham United 1, Manchester United 3. I'm just touching on something you said there, Rio, about the stadium. I recall being in there a couple of times before. When it's empty and sort of standing on the pitch, and it really just looks vast. I mean, it looks enormous, doesn't it, from the stand? But when you're actually on the pitch or in the centre of it, it is the word you used was cavernous, which I think is absolutely spot on. That's a perfect way to describe it. One thing we haven't touched on tonight, gentlemen, Gnome's just finished watching Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's post-match interview, so we'll come to that in just a second. Before we do that, let's have a quick roundup of the forums. Pinky has been keeping an eye on Red Cafe for us, where I suspect the natives are somewhat more happy than they were about an hour ago. And Rio has been keeping an eye, as he does always diligently, on the KUMB.com match thread. Let's go to Rio first to see what our fellow Hammers fans made of all that tonight. Rio, what's the general mood now? Somewhat despondent, I would imagine.
I think people are pretty much accepting that, as we've said, the calibre of player that Man United had to bring off the bench has really won on this game, and we was wasting our chances, and that's cost us dearly. Ray's Rock was put. The funny thing is, we played better tonight for any time than Villa, and now we're losing. Get your heads around that one. There's a couple of really interesting comments. Smuts has put, defensively we went to play too high a line and that the slow Kufels to be exposed. Not a good day for Fabianski either, to be honest. 4-0 does my nut in. We need to get Barama in over him or Arthur. Hopefully we have a striker lined up with a bit of pace, as Haller was bang average again. Let's be honest, we've been poor the last 3 games. The first half was the best we've played for ages, but you can't miss chances like that and get away with it. Gaz West Ham at 66. Most annoying game of the season. Lesson in taking your chances and can't afford to miss that many. Derelict equalised, looked to across the line by at least a yard or two. Can even see Moyes on the touchline applauding in the pressure Bowen put on Henderson to win the throw. He had the best view right in line with it. How can VAR not cover the pitch boundaries? No wonder VAR gets so much stick. Capitulated after that. Fernandes and Rashford changed the game for them. We looked spent. WHU Independent, highly disappointing. Playing a week out of form Man United team and going 1-0 up, bossing the game, and despite missed chances. Do we go for the win? No, we sit back and let them come and play on the break. As much as I hate Man United, I won't repeat the next one, and the boring team for North London, we always lose to them. Why? As Neville said, it's an attitude, a belief that you can win. Go 1-0 up and go looking for more. We don't have that belief, and we hardly ever have had it. We never play to win, we play not to lose, and that's the big difference.
Okay, a real mix of opinions there. Pinky, what's the view from Surrey tonight?
Well, the Surrey massive, the Guildford gang, dare I call it. Basically, the conclusion is they're not quite a one-man team, but as close as you're ever going to get to it. And here's a stat for you that whether it's true or not, I don't know, but someone's written it. They're saying 38 points for 38 games for Bruno Fernandes. And he's been involved in 36 goals. Wow. So if you want a player that makes a difference, if that stat's correct, he's the guy that makes the difference. Big praise for Marcus Rashford as well, all over the board. They're saying that he's a class act. So they've gone the full roller coaster tonight. Before kick-off, they were going to smash us. 35 minutes in, it was Ole's got to go. 70 minutes down, and it's we're starting to look like world champions again. And by the end, we're 2 points off top. There you go. That's your standard Red Cafe match thread, I suspect. And if we're being honest, the knees up Mother Brown one probably isn't too dissimilar in the same circumstances. So, I mean, fair play to them. Clearly, there's a sense of entitlement amongst an element of their support, I'd suggest. But you can understand it if you've got a number of very good players. But were I a Manchester United supporter, which thank the Lord and all that, I think we saw in the first half there were glaring gaps in their squad, just as there are in ours. And perhaps the most worrying thing for me tonight was watching the way that pace completely undid our defence in the second half. That's the introduction of Rashford doing that, and the speed on the turn of Greenwood. To basically skin Angelo Ogbonna, who's been outstanding for us all season. But I touched in the first half that I thought we'd need to go for 2 young centre backs in the not too distant future. And I think what we saw in the second half here tonight kind of confirms that to me. Moyes is papering over the cracks using all his managerial experience, doing a very good job. But at the end of the day, it's about players. And if you ain't got them, you've got to go get them, because we've done fine this season, but we really are looking like a team that needs quite a lot of reinforcements all over the pitch.
Yeah, very much so. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to get many of those if the noises coming out of Stratford or wherever it is are concerned these days. Doesn't look like we're going to have, or Moyes isn't going to have much of a transfer kitty in January, but we're doing sort of better, I think, than what most people would have expected at the moment. But yeah, to push on, we just need that bit of investment. Doesn't look like it's going to come, but we shall talk about that at length, I'm sure, at another point in the coming weeks. Gnome, been waiting patiently. I don't think anyone's come out yet, Gnome, but Solskjaer's had his say on tonight's game.
Yeah, it nearly kept me awake. He didn't say anything interesting, to be honest. He said, West Ham are a good team. Look at the results they've had this season. So it was no surprise that they played so well in the first half. I had to change something, and Fernandes and Rashford were necessary. It was unfortunate that Martial had the injury as well, but he's pleased with the pleased with the result. At the end of the season, nobody looks at the performance. It's it's how many points you've got on the board, that was pretty much it. It was it was the usual sort of fawning. I'd like to see a more Des Kelly approach to interviewing managers. To be honest, like last week, the thing with Klopp was just absolutely hilarious. But he wasn't asked any hard questions, and he didn't answer any of the soft ones either. So just usual standard stuff. Please.
Okay.
Point. We did well against a good team. Yeah.
Well,
Still waiting for Moyes anyway.
Yeah.
I've got the channel. They've excuse me. They've changed channels for the Moyes thing, so I'm on the right channel. He hasn't come out yet, or if he has, they're not putting the recording. I'm watching lots of Championship League, Division 1, whatever it's called, or Division 2. Yeah, second tier goals at the moment.
Okay, well, let's see if he comes out. We'll give him another 10 or 15 minutes or so and see if he comes out to face the press, because it would certainly be very interesting, I think, to hear what he has to say about the first goal and, not West Ham not being given a throw-in in the lead up to that. But we shall see anyway. Fingers crossed we'll get something from Moyes before we end the broadcast. We haven't read out the full-time stats, so I'll go through those quickly before we move on. Possession, West Ham 40%, Manchester United 60%, which is interesting because West Ham, I think, were as low as about 34, 35% at half-time. So we increased our share in the second half slightly, but conceded 3 goals. Shots, West Ham 19 shots. Manchester United 15, each team producing 6 shots on target each. It'd be good to see what the XG is actually, Pinky. I don't know if you can perhaps find that for us at some point, just to see how that weighed up. Corners, West Ham 5 to Manchester United's 4, and West Ham committing 9 fouls to Manchester United's 10. Something else we haven't touched on yet, which we usually do by this point in our post-match roundup and discussion, debate, call it what you will, is our Man of the Match award for the evening. So first half, it could have been one of sort of 10 or 11 players, I think. By the end of it, probably none of 10 or 11 players. So I'll turn to Rio first of all. I think, Rio, overall, looking back at that, who's your Man of the Match from tonight?
I think, as you said, it could have been anyone from 10 first half. But Declan Rice was the standout player all game for me.
Yeah.
He made some crucial interceptions, absolutely bullied the midfield in the first half. Second half, obviously we were under the cosh a bit more, but when we did try and press the issue a bit more, he came to the fore. He made that outstanding challenge in about halfway, I think after their first goal, wasn't it?
On the edge of the
box.
Back
30 odd yards, got that vital foot in. That was an outstanding piece of play. And
he did it 3 or 4 times.
Night.
Yeah. Sorry, Rio, butting in. I was just saying he did it
fine.
3 or 4 times, didn't he, on the night? Some great interceptions and challenges.
Yeah, when people were losing their heads around him, he kept his up and he kept plugging away. So, yeah, for me, easy choice.
Okay, good stuff. Rio, Rio Gnome, would you go along with what Rio said, or have you got someone else in mind?
No, Declan Rice was fantastic today. Some of the interceptions that he put in, there were some which owed everything to anticipation, knowing where the ball was going to be and being there first. There were others where it involved getting getting more back at the player. That one on Rashford we're talking about, and he's an outstanding player, and fairly sure if he got caught and you see him go down, you know he's going to be in pain. Unlike many players these days, let's put it this way, he's a good, honest player.
Yeah.
the one with the challenge with Rashford, he did actually pick up a little knock there. And but basically he won the ball. He looked up, played it forward, played it away, moved on, and did his job. And when the ball was dead, he sort of examined the bit where he got caught and a little sort of wince and all that. But he does the job. He gets on with it, and it's refreshing to see.
Okay, good stuff. 2 out of 2 for Declan Rice so far. He's only been nominated as man of the match once this season by KUMB's match reporter Chris Wilkerson. That for the 1-0 win at Sheffield United a couple of weeks ago on the 22nd of November. Pinky, are you going to make it a full house for Declan tonight, or is there someone else who caught your eye?
I think Bowen for his first half performance ran him close, but
yes,
it's a 90-minute game, isn't it? And although Gary Neville thinks otherwise because he gave to Rashford for on the TV channel tonight, but yeah, you'd have to go with Declan Rice. I thought he was very, very good indeed this evening. Clearly had a tougher time when Bruno Fernandes came on, but that's only to be expected to some extent. But Rice was outstanding. He's a good player. He is clearly the jewel in the West Ham crown, and we all keep saying it. Will the chairman be tempted to cash in, citing poverty at some stage? And my own personal sneaking feeling is he did a deal with Rice when Rice signed his most recent contract, and that would have been give me one more full season, Declan, then I'll let you go. So I would expect to see Rice exit stage left in the summer, and then we'll be back to what. So, but tonight, no complaints with Rice. He did his job for West Ham United. Good performance, but it wasn't enough.
No, not quite. Unfortunately for the Hammers, I think it's I tend to agree with you guys. I think 45 minutes, Bowen, great shout. I thought, a couple of other outstanding performances. I thought Souček was superb in the first half, anonymous in the second. Bowen, brilliant first half, and then missed that opportunity, didn't he? Right at the start of the second half, from the Kufal cross in the 51st minute, when Kufal laid the ball across, and that was sort of the last notable contribution I think we saw from him. So I think definitely Declan Rice, an outstanding performer, and Gnome pointed it out at the time. We've spoken about it since that challenge on Greenwood on the edge of the box was just. The term is bandied around a lot, but it was world class. It really was, to hook the ball away. And, it's a bit like, again, we refer to it every now and again, but the Bobby Moore challenge in the 1970 World Cup against Brazil, very similar, sort of coming back and, hooking the ball away and just strolling away with the ball. But great stuff anyway from Declan Rice, and not entirely disappointing night, I guess, for West Ham. But it's just a shame the second 45 minutes couldn't match the first. Pinky?
Well, on the XG you touched on earlier.
Yes, thank you.
This right. West Ham 2.53 to Man United 1.79.
Really?
Expected points, West Ham 1.88 to Manchester United 0.90. So you look at all the way through it. We battered them, except they got 3 goals, we got 1. It's one of those nights, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's almost in a way like Villa in reverse, isn't it? If you look at the stats for that one.
Yeah. So, but it's disappointing. We weren't disgraced, but we've said it several times now. Solskjaer had more options on his bench than Moyes had on his, and I fear for us a little bit this season, whereby it's going to turn into not quite a nothing season, but close to it, because we'll be miles too good for to be anywhere near the bottom 6.
Yeah,
and just a bit too far away from getting into that top 6, and we're gonna drift, unless we're careful, into the Curb's boredom zone, where there'll be nothing on any game. Can't go up, can't go down. We're just in that horrible bit in the middle, and I reckon come middle of February, that's where we could be.
Yeah, who can forget that season when West Ham hovered around 9th or 10th for the last 3 or 4 months? And I think We couldn't wait for the season to end, could we? Because, no challenge for Europe, no relegation battle. It was the most boring season we'd ever seen in our lives. But we probably would have hoped for a bit of that a few years since then. But anyway, there you go. There's the stats. XG, West Ham 2.53 to Man United's 1.79 expected goals. Just showing, how we did dominate for the first 45, 50 minutes. And, there you go. Just couldn't put the chances away. One of those nights, unfortunately, it just didn't happen. In the last two weeks, two matches, we've spoken about it already on the stream tonight. Before I go on to that, still nothing from Moyes. Doesn't look like we're going to get anything from him tonight,
I'm expecting it to we're just going for a load of adverts at the moment. And,
okay.
I'm expecting as soon as they go back, it'll be the next thing on the agenda. But
okay, well, shout if it happens. Just dive in, just shout, and we'll get you in for that one. I was just going to say there. Last 2 weeks, we've seen two teams that are very, very much driven by one particular individual. Last week against Villa, it was Jack Grealish who was everywhere, ran the game, put us under extreme pressure. Tonight it was Bruno Fernandes who came on for Manchester United at halftime and changed the game. My question to the panel is this, and I'll start with you, Gnome, as you may have to shoot off very quickly. If you had to pick one of those to be in your team, Fernandes or Grealish, who would it be?
Me?
Yes.
Fernandes.
Yes, please. Okay. Any particular reason?
Two reasons. I think Fernandes is a better player for a kickoff.
Okay.
Secondly, which is a good start. Secondly, if a player who does what Grealish does signed for us, suddenly you'd find referees picking up on it. If he dived for us the way he did last week, he'd have picked up a yellow card. It would have. You just know it.
Yeah.
We don't get the rub of the green, and but Fernandes is a class above Grealish.
A shoe-in for Gnome, Bruno Fernandes. Pinky, what about yourself?
Fernandes all day long. Firstly, as Gnome rightly says, he's a better player. But he's a slightly different kind of player, but he's a better player. And secondly, he plays for the team, and undoubtedly, he understands football as a team game. I think Jack Grealish, if you're going to look at him and say there's an element of it all being about him, and I suspect there's a bit of a very big fish in a very small pond at Villa, whereas Bruno Fernandes is doing it at one of the biggest clubs in the world, and doing it week in, week out.
Do you think Grealish would struggle, Pinky, if he moved to a club like Manchester United or Liverpool?
I don't think he's got the courage to do it.
Okay.
And I think that probably tells us deep down he knows he's not quite good enough to do it at those clubs. And who the hell am I to make that sort of comment about someone who was clearly a top draw player, but I don't think he's quite in the class of the next level up, if you know what I mean. He'll be a superstar at Aston Villa, but that's an ordinary Aston Villa team.
Yeah.
Whereas Bruno Fernandes is the superstar at Manchester United, and there is a difference.
So in some ways, I guess you could perhaps liken him to, say, I'm going back a while now, but someone like Matthew Letizia, who has, enjoyed particularly being a big fish in a small pond of their own local team. In a way.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's a very good comparison, and maybe that's harsh on Grealish, but if he really wants to fulfil his potential, then he probably needs to back himself and say, do you know what? I'll go and try and be the main man at what is currently a bigger club. And I'm not being rude about Aston Villa there at the minute. But they were in the second division an awful lot more recently than Manchester United have been in the second division. And I don't see Manchester United weighing out 60, 70 million pounds for Jack Grealish. Tottenham Hotspur might.
Yes.
They might.
Very much so. You can certainly see him going there, can't you, somewhere like that?
Yeah, and dare I say, it'd be a very Tottenham sort of player in a normal Tottenham team. I'm not convinced that Mourinho would quite indulge in it. though. So who knows? But certainly given the choice of the two, Fernandes every single time.
Good stuff. 2 for Fernandes, none for Grealish so far. Rio, going to offer us anything different, or do you agree with the guys?
No, I'm in complete agreement. Fernandes has come into that Man United side, a Man United side who was incredibly struggling last year. He's come in and revamped them.
Mm-hmm.
He's made them, as I said, he makes them tick. Without them, they look a poor side. And he does it without relying on the dark arts that Grealish does, you know?
Yeah.
You don't see Fernandes going to floor every 5 seconds. You don't see Fernandes screaming like a girl half the time, which, let's be honest, Grealish does all too often. He's a marvellous player, Grealish, but he's not in anywhere near the same league as Fernandes. But Fernandes makes, as Pinky rightly said, one of the biggest clubs in the world. He makes them tick. And without them, they're a poorer side. And this is a side that contains someone with the reputation and price tag of Paul Pogba, the known ability of Wayne. And he makes both of them look poor. And if he's doing that, he's doing something right.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it, in a way that, you know, there's been a lot of talk in the week following when Diego Maradona sadly passed away, about diving and cheating and things like that. And, you know, the two players we're talking about here, Grealish, of course, being English. Leeds have just scored at Chelsea, by the way. They've taken the lead, which is quite interesting. Bamford, I think, scored there in the 4th minute. But yeah, it's quite ironic, isn't it, that, you know, Grealish, an English player, dives all over the place, and Fernandes just doesn't seem to need to resort to those tactics. Another Manchester United player, we saw it from tonight. Gnome, was it? Who was it who died? Was it Greenwood or Rashford?
Greenwood, when the ball was played at the end of the box. He just threw himself to the floor. And Mario looked at him, made that little, get up. That annoyed me because that indicates that he saw what happened. Yeah. And if a player, it's simulation. If he does that, free kick and yellow card. I mean, you know, why don't you do it? You know it's happened.
Yeah, very much so.
There's the law of the game. Get out in front of the box and come and explain it to us. Yeah. So we still no sign of it. They've just shown the highlights of the game. Okay. Still no sign of the post-match interview from Mr. Moyes.
Well, it doesn't look like
it's been recorded, but we're just waiting for them to show it.
Okay. Well, it doesn't look like we're going to get.
Went over to the Chelsea Leeds game, so we're having to wait in between all the sort of championship goals and other stuff.
All right. Well, perhaps we'll. It looks like we might have to miss out on Mr. Moyes' comments tonight, because I'm going to want to wrap up fairly shortly. But yeah, sorry, Rio. Just coming back to that point, you know, a lot of fuss about foreign players being divers, and now we're seeing so many English players doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sad indictment of our game where we used to be poor scorn or foreign talent coming in and doing it. It wasn't the English way. And we're seeing a bit of a reversal now. Whether it's the influence of all the continental players coming here, but it's almost as if it's been coached into the young English talent. And I really hate to see that. Yeah.
I'll tell you something about that in a minute. Yeah.
The likes of Grealish, James Maddison, they're immensely talented players.
Yeah.
They don't do themselves any favours by doing what they do.
So Rio, Jack Grealish, if he was at West Ham and, you know, he was carrying on that way, performing those sort of antics, do you think that our fan base would let him get away with it?
I don't think we would. I think we'd tolerate a certain level, but I can't. I know. I mean, Di Canio got targeted with a lot of accusations of diving, he did go down a few times, but
it's true.
We saw a lot of times when he got absolutely hacked to pieces.
Yeah. Di Canio was never going to get a penalty after the Alcock incident, and
that's true.
We've got David Moyes now anyway, if you want to carry on, and I'll get back.
Well, we'll come back to you in a minute now. That's perfectly timed. But yeah, so Rio, I mean, we saw Lanzini, didn't we, Rio? Charged by the FA a year or two back, and I seem to remember on the KUMB forum, he was getting pelters from from our members anyway, and I'm pretty sure that they were quite representative of everyone in the fan base. So it kind of makes you wonder.
No, I mean, it's something that I don't think West Ham fans tolerate, and even in like the kind of hours and needs, I'd rather see a player try and stay on his feet and do the honest thing. I just don't like it, full stop. And I especially don't like it when it creeps into young English talent. I mean, we mentioned Maddison, Grealish, we saw Greenwood tonight. You know, there's no need for it. There's absolutely no need for it. And as I said, I think it's been coached into them, and that is not the way to go forward. You know, you don't want to see that in the game. You know, I don't like seeing it abroad. And domestically, so no, I wouldn't tolerate a West Ham.
Pink, did you go along with that? Do you think Grealish might, have a few words in his ear from Hammers fans if he tried those sort of tricks? You know, were he here?
Yeah, I do, because I think we need to differentiate between a player who skillfully positions his body between the ball and the opponent to win a free kick, which is a legitimate tactic. You know, if you're fouled, you're fouled. It gets a bit tedious after a while, but there is a place for it in the game. Mark Noble is very good at that, for sure.
I was just going to say, you're thinking of Noble there, because
Noble would do that. Teddy Sheringham was always another player who was, someone that would use that. But that's different to diving. Diving is an attempt to deliberately con the ref. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so there's not skill involved. It's just cheating, and let's call it what it is. I know we saw an example last week from Jack Grealish where there wasn't a West Ham United player anywhere near him. Okay, in fact, they were so far away, even I would have been allowed to attend the game. That's how far away from the players. All right, and he went down clutching his leg. Now, to me, and I said it last week, there should have been some kind of retrospective action. But had he been a West Ham United player doing that, I'd have given him exactly the same stick, because I don't want to see that. You know, winning by cheating, that's not winning. That's not winning. And I actually don't go along with this thing about it was the foreign lads that used to do it all the time and we never used to. I think there's been plenty of it in the English game for an awful long time from English and Scottish and Irish and Welsh players. Yeah. But the worrying thing for me now is it isn't getting called out. Jack Grealish should have been on the back pages of every national newspaper last week getting caned. And I said it last week, I'd like to see Southgate leave him out of the next two England squads, just to say, do you know what? I don't care how clever you think you are, young Jack, but that isn't football. And youngsters will look at him and think, well, that's how you play. That's how you play to get to play for England by cheating. Yeah, not for me. And I don't think our supporters would tolerate it to any significant degree. That's not us. We're better than that.
I think it's an admirable. It would be admirable for him to do it, but I just can't see Southgate ever in the bottle to do something like that. It's just, I think that's just the way football is. Talking about, you mentioned how it's been going on for a long time here. Was it not Franny Lee who admitted to diving in the 70s for 1970s for penalties?
Yeah, he took them as well. The joke was there was a Chinese international playing for Manchester City or Derby called Lee Wan Pen, and was the running joke at the time. I said Mr. Moyes was coming on. Basically, they just showed a clip of him talking about the offending goal. Okay. He said it was definitely out. It was above my head and behind me. He said everybody knew it on the pitch. You could tell by the players' reaction. He said the linesman wasn't looking. Why VAR didn't spot it? He just didn't know. But he was not happy because the game changed on that. There's obviously a fuller interview on there, but they're not showing it at the moment. So if I can just chip in on the diving debate.
Please do.
Rio mentioned clubs coaching players for this. And this is a long while ago, but I saw West Ham playing Liverpool's kids. over at Rush Green, talking 15 years ago, maybe even longer. And a Liverpool player went into the box and went and no, didn't go down. He stayed on his feet. And there was a West Ham player near him, and it was sort of side by side. But he just ran out of space and pulled out. The Liverpool coach did his nut. There was a running argument on the side of the pitch because he said, what did I tell you? And he says, why don't you go down? And he said, well, he never touched me. And he says, what's that got to do with it? That's not what we teach you at this club. And I'm thinking, well, there's your sort of source. I mean, I mentioned this briefly the other week. Liverpool's travails in Europe, they saw what was going on there. They kind of imported it. It's not just foreign players. Gerrard, I mean, even Dalglish was a fine player that everyone says he was known to be very unbalanced when the occasion merited it. And it's something that they clearly do instill at a youth level, which I just hate to see. As to the ongoing thing, if Grealish was doing it for us, well, when Lanzini won that penalty, I called him out for it, and I'll continue to do so. It's not something I want to see at my club. Now, that may be the difference between us and other clubs. I remember having an argument with, and I'm sorry if I'm picking on Liverpool, but they're probably amongst the worst. But
Don't apologise.
The debate was, first, if my player goes down like that, I'm going to call him out. Your average Liverpool supporter will firstly say, "Oh, there was contact," or they'll try and prove black is white, and as Douglas Adams put it, get run over at the next zebra crossing. But they'll firstly say it was a penalty, and then when you say, "Look, palpably it wasn't," they then move on to, "Well, everyone does it. Why shouldn't we?" And it's no, everyone doesn't do it. And you'd have to go. You'd wait a million years before some clubs' supporters would admit that they've got a diving problem with a player or two players. I'd like to think we're better than that. Sure, you'll get some who say, "Oh, everyone else does it." I don't want that at my club.
No, I think you're right, Gnome. I think we are better than that, and I think we would rather see our team lose than resort to cheating in such a fashion to win, and that's borne out by everything that you guys are saying here tonight. And as I say, I'm sure that's pretty typical.
I can't talk for anybody else. I'm just talking for me. I think it's disgusting. I don't want to see players doing it. The Di Canio, you mentioned Di Canio, a couple of times, but he was fouled and didn't get the free kick more times than he dived and did.
But isn't that what's going to happen to Grealish? No, in the same way as it's the case for Zaha at Palace.
I hope Grealish is a marked man now from referees. I hope that they're going to say, balance of probabilities, he's a diver. It wouldn't get to that if they did their job in the first place. But I hope that they start ignoring stuff that happens on him because it's Grealish. Well, I'm not sure, but let's face it, I'm more likely to be right if I don't give him a free kick or a penalty there than I do. It serves him right.
Okay.
You can't complain if you get dive like that all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Gavin McGrath. Pinky.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'd like someone to get a hold of Grealish and just show him YouTube clips of George Best having to beat 6 players, all of whom they weren't trying to tackle him; they were trying to maim him. They were trying to cause him physical harm. In an era when you could get away with a lot more.
Yeah.
And did he resort to diving?
No,
I don't think the greats resort to diving. The greats prove the great by beating the opposition, who are trying to maim them, with skill, with courage, with verve. And if Grealish wants to be seen as a top draw player, he needs to take all that sort of theatrics out of his repertoire because it'll destroy his reputation. And I don't think top draw managers are impressed by it, let alone supporters.
Yeah. Okay, good stuff. Well, interesting debate about diving, and I think we've come to the conclusion that at West Ham it's not something we ever really want to see. I say we're only as Gnome said, we're only speaking for ourselves, but I'd like to think that, you know, we're pretty typical of the West Ham fan base as a whole in that sense. So we'll see how that develops for Jack Grealish. Who knows? Hopefully he'll cut it out and go on to become a decent England player. But Pinky's absolutely right. No, Rio, you know, the greats have never needed to resort to that. They just play the game and you know, beat the opposition that way. We're going to wrap up very, very soon. Before we do, there's one more topic I wanted to discuss. We sort of touched on them a few minutes ago. They're actually playing at the moment. Leeds are playing at Chelsea tonight. They're 1-0 up. Bamford scored in the 4th minute. Which would be a huge shock if they went on to win that one, but perhaps not such a shock given the way Leeds play. And they are, of course, our next opponents. We travel to Ellen Road next weekend for our first match against Leeds for ages. Couldn't tell you exactly when. I'll find out in a minute. But Friday, we're up there this Friday for that one. Gnome, I'll come to you first on this one, buddy. Going to be a tough test for the Hammers. Leeds looking, without doubt, the strongest of the 3 promoted teams. That's evident, you know, from what we're seeing tonight at Stamford Bridge. But how do you see that one going? Is that a game that, you know, we think we can benefit from, given the way Leeds play? Perhaps
they'll probably be they'll probably be the toughest opponents we've had for a while. Notwithstanding, I mean, because they'll be a decent side for 90 minutes, unlike today's opponents, for example. I think it's going to be a tough one. I'd be happy with a draw from it. Mm-hmm. And thank you for reminding me it's Friday, because I just had it in my head it wasn't. It's going to be a tough one. I haven't seen an awful lot of them, but the reports on them, you see them winning well, but you also see there are a few odd results. I mean, it's been a strange season for everyone, isn't it? So I'm not sure what they are in the league. I'm just trying to find out. But it's going to be a tough one. They're exactly mid-table. Actually, they're on the same points as we are, aren't they? They're just behind us on goal difference. They've got a -1 goal difference. As it stands, anyway. That's the as it stands table. So, so they were on 14 points before tonight's game started. Tough one. I'll be happy with the draw up there, to be honest.
Yeah, fair. I think it's definitely going to be a tough game. For the record, the last time we played Leeds, well, can anyone tell me? Anyone remember off the top of your heads? No.
I cheated and looked it up.
I know. You've cheated. Okay. You're disqualified then, Mr. Palermo. We'll tell you. I think Pinky, wasn't it, Ravel Morrison's debut?
It may well have been. I haven't looked it up in that much detail. But
okay.
That's 2-1, didn't we?
We played Leeds last in the Championship, actually. So, for my money, I'm actually looking forward to seeing them, seeing that. And again, with no away supporters going anywhere, a trip to Ellen Road would have been probably one of the highlights of the season, because those of us of a certain age group will always refer to them, of course, as dirty Leeds. But in absolute credit to Marcelo Bielsa, I think he's put a team together that plays with a certain attacking intent, with some style, a lot of pace, a lot of energy. And I think he's trying to play good football. And hats off to him for that. And I think it'll be a very good game indeed. I think they've got enough about them going forward to cause us problems at the back. But equally, I think if they've got a frailty, it's at their defence. They leave themselves a bit open. So if we can get Antonio fit in time for it, who knows? But I'm looking forward to the game. I'd go with a West Ham United win, because I think 2 relatively evenly matched teams, I'd always back our own lads. But I quite like them. You know, I've seen them play 2 or 3 times now this season in full, and they're okay. They're okay. They're not mugs, but Bielsa, he chases the win, and I think that'll end up costing him points. He's almost the complete opposite of Sam Allardyce, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. I like that. Do you think perhaps, Pinky, that this could be an opportunity for Ben Rama to make his first start? Do you think there's any chance of that?
Actually, I don't think there's any chance of that. I genuinely don't, because he did a few bits and pieces tonight, but again, there was a moment he tried a flick, just gave the ball away. I don't think he's a player that David Moyes trusts. I think, then maybe I'm completely wrong, but I have the impression that Moyes wanted a different footballer at the club. The chairman, because of the influence of a particular agent, wanted Ben Rama, and the chairman only looks at one half of the field. It's, what us going forward. I'm not sure he completely understands the game, and that actually the balance of the team can be affected massively by just one change. And for me, I don't think David Moyes is going to trust Ben Rama as a starting player anytime soon. I just don't see it.
Okay, so Fornell still in the team for you then?
Oh, absolutely.
Next week up at Ellen Road. Good stuff. Good stuff. Before I come on to you, Rio, Simon Osborne's just pointed out, made a very good observation. We were talking about players, quality players getting battered by the opposition, and he makes the reference to Pele in 1966, of course. Was kicked out of the competition and was unable to finish it. So, a very good observation, Simon. Thank you for dropping that one in there. Rio, Leeds, Gnome's gone for a draw.
No, that was a thumbs up for Simon's comment. No,
thank you.
I've still got McDonald's adverts, and are we ready for reindeer? And to which my answer is venison. But anyway, carry on.
Scott Parker still.
Do you know
adverts?
Is he still doing the adverts? Did you say?
Yeah, he's still doing adverts. No,
he could probably get away with it, couldn't he?
We've got colour telly now, so
well, you might have.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're still too mean to pay for the full license, aren't you?
Very much so.
Interesting. While we're going off on complete tangents, I was at a venison farm today talking about venison. It was like one of those pick your own. You actually drive past the deer, and you can. It's almost like a lobster in a restaurant. You point and say, "I want that one," and they'll bonk it on the head for you and send it to you via home delivery the next day. Life in the East Midlands there for you folks. A little taste of it for those of you that never venture this far north. Rio, coming to you finally on this point. Going to be a tough game next week. You think, the Gnome and Pinky have pointed out, that the frailties and also the benefits of playing the Bielsa system. How do you see that one going?
Yeah, no, it's going to be probably, as Gnome said, it's probably our toughest game of the ones we've got coming up. They play with such an intensity and such high fitness levels. You've got to worry about our squad because we're so threadbare and we're relying on the core of 14 or 15 players to get us through. And it wasn't that long ago that our squad's fitness levels were, let's put it this way, appalling. Bielsa's got this well-drilled lead side who he makes work like dogs. And they're running their legs off still in the 95th minute. So you've got to worry about that. That's my biggest fear. Eventually this run of games we're having with such a small pool of talent at our disposal, it's going to catch up with us. Mm-hmm. But, there's no reason we can't go up there and get a result. I just worry about the intensity and the way that they play. Well, we've spoken about, Pinky waxed lyrical about Bielsa's strengths and disadvantages. Do you think he'd be the perfect manager for West Ham? He'd be the perfect manager for our support. We'd love him. We'd love the way that he plays. He wouldn't do much cop in the way of hospital admissions at this time because we'd be having absolute heart attacks every week, But I'd absolutely love him, but he needs someone who's going to back him a little bit and have faith. I don't think. Do I go back into the ownership thing? Yeah, I don't think our owners would tolerate. tolerate it at all. I think he's too strong-willed.
Too much of a maverick.
Very much so. And, you know, we haven't seen him when the chips are going down yet in British football. And we all know that at West Ham, the chips will go down at some point. You know, and it'd probably be a lot quicker than it would be at Leeds at the moment. So, yeah, I love the way that he plays, the ethos of his footballing world. I just don't think that our ownership and the Premier League would go hand in hand and making him welcome in London.
It's the way he pulled young Frank's pants down when Lampard was the manager at Derby County, and the Spygate scandal of, you know, they've watched us training, and his subsequent press conference where he basically gave a PowerPoint presentation pointing out that they watch every other team, hundreds of matches, they analyse every game to death. And he made Lampard look about as if he was in charge of a Sunday league team in terms of this is what you do kind of thing. I mean, I don't think it's a big case of our chairman putting up with him. I think he wouldn't put up with our chairman. I can't actually imagine a player arriving from Brentford with Bielsa as the manager and him entertaining it even for a second. And maybe, you know, that's not calling out David Moyes. Moyes has learned a degree of diplomacy, I'm sure, around our chairman. And there'll be things going on that he won't like. But he'll just let it ride for now. Bielsa, I think, if a player turned up who didn't want, I suspect he's a volatile enough character just to say, I'm off. And so I think our supporters would love him. I think the chairman might hate him. And it's one of those.
Gnome, how would you fancy a Bielsa Di Canio dream team as management? Imagine that.
It'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Well, for about 5 minutes, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it wouldn't last, would it? Because, as I say, I mean, I've been in the company of Mr. Moyes on a number of occasions, as you'll be aware, and you know, whatever you think about him as a manager and all that, he seems a genuine, fairly laid back. Tonight, when they showed the little clip of him complaining about that, it was as annoyed as I've ever seen him, and it was still calm and polite, and he just had a look on his face. Now, so when he has to put up with some of the more unusual actions of our ownership, shall we say, I guess he knows how to sort of cope with it and make the best of, and calmly sort of where he can reject things. Bielsa and Di Canio, the first meeting with Sullivan, I could see going pear-shaped and us looking for another two. It wouldn't last 5 minutes. They wouldn't just stand for stuff. I don't think the word diplomatic is in either of their dictionaries, shall we say. I mean, you've only got to look at what Di Canio says, and he says what he thinks, and if people don't like that, then well, tough. That's what he thinks. So it'd be fun for about 10 minutes, but
who knows what the future holds anyway? For now, we
all need mavericks and stuff in football, but you also need a bit of stability, and I think that when Moyes goes, eventually, I think the likelihood is that we'll be in a slightly more stable, well, maybe not slightly, but more stable, better position than when he arrived. If Bielsa and Di Canio were there, would you really think that? I mean, just thinking of them, it'd be fun, but it's like a decent party, real fun, but there's a hell of a mess to clear up afterwards.
Certainly would. Perfectly described, and a great way to end tonight's broadcast. Davy Moyes, of course, there isn't a vacancy right now because Davy Moyes, despite tonight's defeat, Yeah, I mean, I think we're all in agreement. Davy Moyes is doing a good job there, and it's nice to discuss these things anyway. But unfortunately, couldn't quite manage to pull out another win against Manchester United tonight. Would have been West Ham's fourth consecutive win. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. We took the lead after 38 minutes through Thomas Souček. Should have scored again, shouldn't we? Hilaire should have scored. Bowen should have scored. We had chance after chance. And then 3 goals in the space of just 16 second half minutes for Manchester United turned the game on its head and condemned the Hammers to our first defeat since going down at Liverpool a few weeks ago. It's a defeat that leaves West Ham in 7th place in the table, which I'm sure we would have all taken at this point in the season. And we've been offered that, when we looked at our fixture list at the start of the season. But there it is, defeat. But we're not too demoralised. It was a decent, outstanding, I think, first half performance. I think we'd agree from the Hammers. And the wheels just came off in the second half. But, when you look back at the season so far, it's been pretty good stuff so far. And let's just hope we can get back to our best form and football at Leeds this coming Friday night. My thanks to my team tonight. That's Rio, the Pink Palermo, to Gnome, and of course also to Charlie, who joined us from the ground live before, during and after tonight's game, so we could all get a taste of what it's like to be a fan at the Olympic Stadium when there's only 2,000 people there. So our big thanks to Charlie for coming on the stream and showing us a few shots of the stadium. That's it for tonight. It's a lie-in for me tomorrow morning because there's no opposition view to do. I don't do them when we lose. It's no fun, is it? You can't take the mickey out of the opposition fans. So I'm going to have a lie-in, and I suggest you all do anyway. But we'll be back next Friday for West Ham United versus Leeds. We'll all be here because none of us are going to get tickets because you can't get tickets for away fans, of course. So that's about it for tonight. So disappointing night for West Ham, but let's hope we can come back next week with a win. And we're not all despondent and disappointed, are we? Look at all these happy faces around me. Look, we're all over the moon. You can't win them all, I guess. Come on, you Irons.